Have you ever felt stuck in having the same arguments with your partner over and over again? It's like you're going in circles. It's a never-ending loop. Today I'm going to discuss with you why this happens. We're also going to have a quick look at some of the hidden underlying patterns of these arguments. Then we're going to discuss how you can break free in order to create a healthier, happier relationship. It's quite common for couples to have the same arguments over and over again. And many times what we see, even if a new situation arises, and a new argument, what these couples do, they go and fetch old arguments from a previous challenge, a previous arguments, and they bring that old argument into the current argument, which makes that argument even more complex in order to get resolved. If you do this in your relationship, one of the number one reasons why it gets done is because the old past issues in the relationship context or within yourself hasn't been resolved. It also tells us on a mental, emotional, or energetic level, the two of you are not on the same page. One of the most important aspects inside a relationship is attitude, as your attitude will determine how you perceive, how you react to, and how you navigate challenges inside the relationship context. It is important to recognize that your partner thinks, feels, and processes information differently from you. Therefore, you cannot just expect of your partner to know how to behave in a specific circumstance or to understand things in the same way, in the same context that you do, without having clear and effective communication. For a moment, I want you to do a bit of introspection. I want you to go and reflect on your relationship. How do you approach arguments? And how do you argue? And what do you think that is the impact of your arguments and how you argue and how you approach it on your relationship itself? If your arguments is filled with a lot of disrespect, for example, there's screaming and shouting, it has quite an effect because it blocks that energy of vulnerability, that energy of truth, sharing my truth with you. And it blocks that openness, that connectedness. And usually, if there's lots of disrespect inside an argument, the focus of the argument doesn't become about resolving the argument itself. The focus now becomes more of a power struggle. The focus is more on who's going to win the argument. It's more about my rightness. I am right and you are wrong. And how to prove that. And the goal of argument, especially in a relationship context, is not to win the argument. It's about how can we resolve it so we can get on the same page, so we can move forward together in a way that serves both of us. It's not about over compromising. It's about consideration. Over-compromising always asks of us to become less. You must become less so that I can become more. Consideration says, how can we win-win in order to move forward into becoming healthier, happier, better versions of ourselves and better version inside the relationship for the relationship to grow and to evolve as well. If there's disrespect in your arguments, it has quite an effect in the relationship as well. Because on an unconscious level, you're actually inviting the energy of disrespect to show up now in other areas of the relationship as well. Therefore, it's so important as a couple to learn how to handle conflict and how to have effective communication in order to have and to build a beautiful relationship, because that is what you deserve. Relationships follows a natural cycle of harmony, disharmony, and repair. Unfortunately, many couples get stuck in a disharmony phase. If a couple is stuck in a disharmony phase with the slightest of tension, the unresolved issues usually resurface. I've also noticed that the couples have resistance to deal with the challenges inside the relationship. They tend to think if I ignore it, it will disappear. Therefore, they take their challenges and they sweep it underneath the carpet, hoping that it will actually go away. But it doesn't. What you don't deal with now, it will resurface sooner or later. The other day, I took a beach ball. I took the beach ball and I pressed it underneath the water. And I realized I could only press it that far down. And then it popped up out of nowhere. It's like I couldn't control it. And that's what I think happens in relationships as well. Whatever you suppress will explode sooner or later. You can only suppress it that far. You have to deal with it sooner or later. I've also seen if you leave a situation too long, it's like getting out of context, getting out of proportion. So, in getting out of perspective. So, it's better to deal with a challenge inside the relationship rather sooner than later, at a preferable time, which is great for you and your partner. Because by not dealing with your issues or the challenges inside the relationship that surface, it's really not serving you nor your relationship, especially if you want a long term relationship. It is essential for a couple to focus on how to repair a relationship after having conflict. When a couple is in a disharmony phase, it just tells us that the couple is out of harmony, they're out of flow, they're out of sync, they are not on the same page. To get back into harmony, there needs to be repair. And for repair to be effective, change is required. And for change to happen, both parties needs to be willing and needs to be open for change. And both parties needs to have the availability, the capacity, and the willingness to share their own thoughts, their perspective, their emotions. And at the same time, to be open to their partner's perspective, their partner's thoughts and feelings. So in order to move from disharmony to harmony, they need to move through the repair phase. And to move through the repair phase, we need to be open and we need to validate each other's thoughts and feelings during the process. Every argument has a root problem. The other day I was sitting with a couple and they were continuously fighting about commitment. And when we delved a bit deeper into the relationship, we realized that the core issue is actually not commitment because both of them are actually committed to one another. But what the core issues was a lack of respect and lack of affection. In the core of every relationship challenge, there's usually three things that always surface. There can either be one, it can be more than one, or it can be all three. Lack of affection, lack of respect, and power struggle. In order for in a relationship to really solve a relationship and the relationship challenges and to delve deeper into the challenges, we need to have an open mind. Open mindedness means that I'm open to the possibility to be wrong. It also means I'm not that attached to my own opinion. I'm not that attached to my own thoughts, my own ideas, my own perspective. Relationships always gives us the beautiful opportunity to learn about ourselves, to learn about our partners, to learn about relationships. And as we learn, we grow. And as we grow, we find the gift of fulfillment. Today we're going to have a look at two patterns that fuel arguments. The first pattern is called negative attribution. Negative attribution is when we judge another person's actions as negative. As human beings, it's 100% normal to always to try to figure out why someone else is doing what they are doing. But with negative attribution, we automatically assume that the other person's actions come from negative intentions, even if it's not the case. I'm going to give you two examples of negative attribution theory inside the relationship context. Let's look at the first example. It's Friday evening. You and your partner has a dinner date at the Pacific restaurant. It's 7 o'clock, but you don't have the courtesy to let your partner know that you're in traffic. But in your head, when you arrive, you can justify it. Ah, I was stuck in traffic. It's not my fault. I was busy in a meeting, etc. But now, in a week from now or a month from now, the tables has turned around. You sitting in a restaurant, it's 7 o'clock, and your partner did not let you know why they're late, so now automatically you go into the conclusion they don't respect my time or they don't care about the relationship. So what's actually happening in this scenario is you see your lateness as circumstantial, but you see their lateness as a flaw in their character. Let me give you another example of negative attribution. Sometimes in relationships we can forget important things. Let's say in the relationship context, you forgot maybe your partner's birthday or you forgot your wedding anniversary or something important. But now automatically you can go into an excuse. You can justify it. You say, I had such a lot on my plate, I was busy, I was overwhelmed, I had a deadline, etc. But as time passes, unfortunately, your partner has the same experience. They forgot maybe your birthday or your wedding anniversary or something important. But now you're running immediately to the conclusion. They're inconsiderate. They don't value me. So you give what happens here, you give yourself grace, but you automatically assume that their actions reveals a deeper flaw. The key idea of negative attribution theory is you view your own actions as due to external circumstances, while assuming your partner's actions reflects a personal flaw. This creates tension and misunderstanding. Another destructive pattern that fuels arguments is called the negative escalation cycle. The negative escalation cycle happens when we unconsciously make things worse without realizing it. Let me share with you the first example of negative escalation cycle. It's Saturday evening. You and your partner had some friends or family for dinner, and Sunday morning you wake up. You realize this house needs cleaning. Instead of making a cup of coffee and waking up your partner and having a chat about the previous evening and ask them calmly to help you to clean the house. Instead of asking them calmly and nicely, you start to nag. And because you nag, they ignore you, which makes you angry. And now you start to yell, and then they snap back. And all you're busy creating is resentment instead of cooperation. Another example of negative escalation cycle is we all sometimes feel insecure inside the relationship, and all we need is a bit of reassurance. Instead of having a chilled conversation regarding your insecurity with your partner, now you just ask your partner, do you care about me? Or you just blame them. Oh, you don't care about me. You don't show it this way or that way. Or you cared about someone else more than what you care about me. So automatically what happens now, your partner is feeling pressured. And now they respond defensively because they are triggered. Now you take their response as a proof they don't care about me. Now you're feeling even more insecure and things is even worse than before. In short, negative escalation is when you're trying to fix things, but your actions unintentionally make the situation more negative, leading to bigger arguments. Recognizing this can help you to break the cycle and respond in a way that brings you closer instead of escalating the conflict. Let's have a quick look at how you can break these cycles. The good news is, if you can just recognize the cycle, you already have awareness. Then the unconscious becomes conscious. Then you have a choice. Instead of reacting, blaming, provoking, shaming, you can take a deep breath in. You can take a step back. And you can try to understand the situation from a different perspective. Try to handle it differently. Because true growth comes and true understanding comes when we give ourselves permission to do something differently. And the more we do something differently, the greater results we see. And that's how we grow. And that's how we evolve. And that's how we become a better version of ourselves. The goal of an argument in a relationship context is not to win. It's not a competition. The goal of an argument is to find an understanding and to find a way to move forward together. By practicing empathy and by recognizing destructive patterns, you can shift from conflict to connection. Instead of repeating the same old fights, you can create a relationship where both parties feel heard, valued, and respected.